Football, sliced and diced with Sedgemoor FM and Somerset FA.
Welcome to Sliced and Diced, where we're having an open and honest conversation about local football. I'm Martin from Yeovil Town, this is Neil Fellows from Sedgemoor FM, and Paul Coltman, marketing consultant with Somerset FA.
Martin, how you doing?
All right, very good.
Good. Thanks for joining us today and being with us. You're a local, and you've recently, I think was it last season, you sponsored the
that's
the
how
main
it started.
stand here,
Yeah.
and then suddenly you're owners.
Suddenly we're here.
Yeah, tell us a bit about that. Tell us a bit about that journey.
Well, as you said, it started off with sponsorship. I mean, not that I wasn't a fan before and coming along, so maybe as a fan you're thinking, oh, sponsorship would be nice. We do sponsorship. During that process, we're sort of made aware of maybe there's a little bit of a few grumbles with regards to ownership and land and, disconnect between the fans and the club. And so that led us to sort of inquire about maybe opportunities, and around October we started that process, started that approach. Quite sort of favourably, but for various reasons that fell through, and so I probably spent the next few months having a little rant on social media and creating
Yeovil community
yeah.
which got it.
Screenshotted within 2 seconds of don't bother deleting it, it's already and anyway. And then, as you know, Reece Rosser is a director now, and he actually proactively reached out to me and said, are you still interested? And I said, dry me tears, yeah. So he started making inroads, to reapproach, and of course, you also had the stewardship thing going on in the interim, which was never going to sit right, and I think as soon as you announce something with the word stewards in it, it's going to get picked up on straight away. That's not a sort of term you typically see in business. You either own it or you don't, or you're a manager or something. And then, of course, you start to see rumblings in that. And part of that process, part of that journey, if you like, if you take my lad, Jack, a great kid, everyone loves Jack. Well, when we're close to getting it the first time, and we're coming to our box to read an announcement that SU Glovers have got it, and sort of almost broke Jack's heart, and as a father and that, it sort of cuts a little bit, and but I must admit, I thought at that point, well, I don't think it's all over yet, so. Transversely, Jack was next to me when we were doing the final deal on that evening. It was a long game, and you do in that process learn the politics involved in ownership, and social media obviously plays a huge part in terms of the reach to the fans and what you pick up on and what you learn. I mean a huge learning curve for me, from coming in from fan to ownership in 6 months, and good and bad, few passions involved. I'd never once change one tweet I made or do anything if it led us to this point.
Yeah.
And then a frantic kind of right up to the line sort of deal. Various caveats being thrown in at the last minute, and we'll slip that one in before he signs, and we'll slip that one in, and we obviously do the due diligence and everything. But and here we are, and that's how it's come about. Really, it's sort of not much time to look back and think about any of it.
So. It's interesting you say time. Obviously, the time to look back. I'm sure at some point you're going to find a time. Whenever they tease you with this theory of an off-season, but it doesn't exist. Not for ownership or management. But I'm sure you'll find a spare minute or two just to reflect. But the time's important. Obviously, you've come in, as you said, it dragged on, and now we're 4 weeks away
Yeah.
from pre-season.
Yeah. And the
well,
last time
invested
someone
that,
said
but-
that to me, they were saying we were 8 weeks away. And that is the speed of which.
So obviously we're here today, and you just walk in from the car park and you see people busily doing their jobs.
Yeah.
You've got diggers and whatever else in action.
Yeah.
What's going to look different when the season kicks off in a few weeks' time?
Firstly, the backstory bit to that is, for whatever reason, it's been neglected over such a period of time. There's almost not enhancements as such as just restoration project, really.
Yeah.
Changes if we were.
It's pride, isn't it?
Yeah, and
that sort of thing. Because I've seen that you've been like respraying seats and things like that. It's good housekeeping.
You've touched exactly on that word, pride, and certainly my mantra, the mantra within our group, is you just take absolute pride in everything you do, whether it's making your bed in the morning or painting a wall or negotiating something. If you take pride in absolutely everything you do in life, the rest just follows through. You don't need to, if you're a plumber, for example, you shouldn't need to ever advertise. You take pride in what you do.
Yeah.
And if you truly do that, everything follows through. And so in terms of changes, there's a whole raft, list of things that we want to do. Some of them are easy wins, really. A tin of paint and a roller and whether it's one of my lads or one of the really decent volunteers that come up. Visually, it's just it's an easy one to do.
Yeah.
It's an easy one that should have been done.
Yeah.
If the chairman can stand there and paint things, I don't think there's much excuse for previously what might have happened. I know budget restrictions and so on. There's small things and there's big things that we want to do. We've obviously done all the relining on the parking spaces. We're painting the stadium throughout. The dugouts were completely changing. They were, fairly hazardous, really. If any player stood up quickly, knock himself out. The seats, I mean, that was actually a blowtorch.
Yeah.
And a little video that was going around. Right? Everyone's seen the video for some reason. It's going around like 3 weeks before, and ironically, it was a green seat. And we thought, you see these videos and you think, is that fake?
Life hacks.
That sort of thing. So we're up here. Next day, big blowtorch, canister of gas, and my boys have refurbished 5,000 seats. Just quite therapeutic, actually, if you get to have a go. But it's when I stopped them halfway through, and they turned to talk to me, but the torch is still pointing at the chair. And I'm lift it up.
That didn't happen, HSE.
And the other thing, of course, is when you enhance something, the next thing next to it looks a bit
spot it,
rough.
It becomes clear, doesn't it? Yeah.
The approach, really, in its entirety, is what is the journey of that fan from when he arrives to what he's seeing, what he's experiencing. The whole term throughout the whole process really has been like match day experience.
I think I've just picked up. I think that's really interesting you say that. I said I've spoken to a lot of clubs over the last few weeks since the season sort of wrapped up, and all of them are going into next season, especially the big four. They're all looking at it in the same way. We're all fighting over the same audience, the same league. We're all looking at it in the same way. Is our match day experience going to be better than the next?
Yeah.
And for us, Somerset FA, we listen and go, that's good. We like that. Because they're going to be picking up on the naughty bits that affect, of course, the families and the older generation and the people that want to come and enjoy their football without having to be experiencing the negatives. And if collectively, like you said, the journey from getting here, parking, walking through the gate,
correct marshalling and the sort of policing of it, and there's been too much. I mean, we're sat up here in the main stand, all very nice, and the kind of disparity between this and then the terraces over there, whom, if you like, media-wise, are probably the most vocal.
Yeah.
And when I sort of walked around and looked at where they have to sort of gather before they go in, I just think that's not an acceptable level for a person driving up here, walking up here, especially in these times. Cost-wise, cost of living and so on, buying a ticket. I thought this is too. So in terms of the continual things we're hoping to do, sure, liquor paint here and there is very nice. Behind the Thatcher's stand, there was groundsman equipment and all this sort of stuff. Well, there's a great little area back there, albeit I think it sort of floods a bit in the winter, so we're trying to get some ACO drainage through there. But we want catering units, bar, covered seating. It's my intention to create a little spot where live music can happen.
Brilliant.
And really, rather than turning up at 2:30, turn up at 12 o'clock. Don't sit over the Arrow until 3 o'clock and walk over, and make it more of a fan zone, a sort of micro village for them. And as you said, with regards to the children and the older ones, and the problem is, I think, in previous ownership or recent ownership, they're not hand on heart a Yeovil person. And so there's a slight disconnect between the club and the community, and it used to be a lot of two-way stuff, and so we're restoring that. You've got team players here painting and doing things.
Good to see.
I'm not sure that would have happened before.
Best be plenty of photographs being taken of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're going to need that for the end of season
That's
celebrations.
it. That's right. And where we're sat now, we've got corporate facilities through here, very underutilised. A lot of sort of brickwork everywhere. Sort of, you feel like you're sort of walking down through the corridors of Broadmoor or something, rather than a football club. So we're slowly plasterboarding it, painting it. A bit more of a nod to the heritage of the club in the sort of history part of it when you come up the stairs. Facilities, the pinch points in the bar with when you're queuing too much. I think we're going to be upgrading the changing rooms for the players, make them feel a bit more professional with it. And onwards, really, the catering, the hospitality, the look of the place, the whole flow of everything. So it's quite a few sort of logistics going on within that.
You said when we were talking before when we were arranging the interview, you said how important the community was to you. And you maybe touched on it a little bit already in terms of what you're doing for the fans and around the stadium. What if you would put that in a nutshell, community? Because I hear community mentioned a lot around football. What does that mean to you and this club going forward?
As far as the community go, I mean, it's almost one thing. It's really hard to talk about, well, here's the football club, here's the community. You don't have a football club without that community.
Exactly.
And those are your customers. And in any other vertical of business, a shop or insurance company or whatever you were, you could not perhaps ignore the customers in a way that this club's been guilty of in recent years and still be in business. And that's reflected in lots of different ways, and it's affected the club. But it's sort of dissolving that kind of what seemed like quite a war between the club and the community. The communications, I mean even on a sort of on that level, the openness now, the sort of mantra of just honesty and openness, and why wouldn't we sit down with supporter groups and talk to them and everything else. And I think in fairness, the community is albeit tested to the end of their patience. They have been patient given the long period of sort of discord that's existed to now.
Will ticket pricing change at all next season for you guys?
I think you've got to look at the clubs around you. You've got to look at what we are. We were. We did a study on that. I think it's 10-15% less than last year it's been well received as far as we can see. And
the reason I'm asking is because I was looking in the Panorama group yesterday, and just seeing that Torquay were going to be charging £22-23 a ticket.
Yeah.
And seeing what fans' reaction
I saw
to
the
that
initial
was.
reactions to that. Yeah. I mean, there's two sides to it. You've got to look at what people are doing around you. If I was to defend Torquay, you've got to allow a business to make the decisions it thinks are right. You've got to have that little bit of entrepreneurialism, if you like, to be bold and make those decisions. I'm sure they've run it through a analysis. We know that's not justice.
This is something I wanted to ask you as well, because obviously you're a successful businessman, you've got a fantastic property portfolio, and then you come into Yeovil. Often football clubs are not looked at as a proper business.
No, I've seen that.
Yeah. How are you approaching that? Do you see it as fun, something to do on the side, or is it actually it's going to run like a business?
No person could sit and say from the outset there's a little bit of ego involved in owning a football club. Trust me, that soon dissipates when you get in and stick your head in the books and
you walk in, your desk is up to here. You're like, day one.
In terms of sort of my tools, if you like, from beginning to now, I think people can very easily be taught to ignore their instincts. And I always think it's very important to push through on that, and that can be a very lonely experience if everyone around you's, and trust me, there's plenty of people around me that were a little bit nervous about this transaction. In terms of, it's almost, I treat it absolutely as a business with the bonus of enjoying the football on top. And I may have seen some certain aspects, some things with debtors lists and things like that, where I think probably they might use the fact that it's football to maybe not be so, proper about paying up and things like that. So they can become mixed, and often to the detriment of the actual business. It's a private limited company. It's responsible, for doing the best it can, and some of that can be a little bit diluted with the football. The football is the I say fun part. I'm assuming we're putting goals in the net. The football is a fun part, but it shouldn't detract from the actual fact that the primitive sort of concept of a business is get more money in than is going out. And so it's one of the things I really enjoy is looking at things not in terms of pound notes, but in percentages and yields and things like that. And if you can take that number and turn it to that number and improve upon things, so we go into every thread of the business and then apply that kind of efficiency drive to every thread, and luckily there's a few things there that we've already seen that we can do. So, and you've got to love business. You've got to prefer to look at a spreadsheet at night rather than Netflix or something. and that's, people say to me, well, what do you do for a hobby or time off? It's a business.
Spreadsheet.
But there's a lot of people say, I'd like to be self-employed, I'd like to be my own boss, and when I ask them why, the two things they say is because I want more money and I want more time off.
Good luck with that one.
And I think in terms of business now and the working life, I think that gradually it's eroded the sort of 9 to 5 typical kind of thing, and you need the flexibility to do different hours and all that. But first and foremost, I love it, and I think if you put your heart and soul into business-wise, something you actually enjoy as a hobby, you're going to do the best you can at it. If you're sort of dragged along kicking and screaming, you're never going to sort of do it.
Realistically, what's the short-term vision for the club?
if we said in terms of performance, we'd obviously be very, very keen to get back up to National League. Certainly more developing the revenue streams outside of the football, the Monday to Friday, the corporate hospitality. I understand they used to be cracking Sunday carveries up here. They're not done. And the short term is certainly stabilising that ship that was very sort of stormy waters before, stabilising the finances, giving the fans time to accept that issues of trust, which who can blame them for what they've been through, and just seeing probably the results of all of that sort of positive vibe that's throughout these offices now in this grounds into the players. Mark now has got resource to do the job he was employed to do. On the flip side of that, he's got no one to blame next year if it doesn't figure, but he'd take that on the chin anyway and know that. And the morale is phenomenal now in terms of where it was, and you could literally see it on the players the end of last season. And it's not so much about whether we're doing something great. I think it's the fact that we are, quite a sort of negative position to start on. So it's enjoyable. We're just loving it. Yeah. It's great. I mean, I could say, I've said it to a few colleagues that up to the point of owning this club, I still felt quite unfulfilled in business, and I've been sort of too soppy about it, sort of spiritually. And actually, since coming into this club, it's actually filled that gap, and it's a really sort of quite a humbling, sort of eye-opening experience for that. There wasn't really anything happening that was filling that. Ask me in a year of this.
I was going to say,
the cup may have overflowed.
Football has a habit of filling in all your spare time. So obviously, it all sounds amazing, and I think as a football fan, I look at what you're doing from the outside and think, okay, let's see how this plays out. Obviously, we've got women's coming back into the club, which is great. There's obviously the trust and I know the academy's not what it was, but there's obviously thoughts of doing more with that again. Yeah, I mean the equivalent of it, if you like, because you lose academy status when you drop down. If you imagine between sort of Jamie and Louis down there, the performance centre, for example, when we announced that not very long ago, 500 kids already applied for that straight away. And, the demand, is literally only sort of contained by having the facilities to do it. And the women's side, it almost sounds strange now, doesn't it? That we almost talk of it as a novelty that women are playing the football, and of course such success with the women's England team and so on. And what I didn't want to do is lots of disjointed little groups of things. It's especially when people have been concerned about, it's not unity. We're not achieving by unity, whether it's separated grounds or ownership and manager and so on. So the whole mantra is, this is one club. You're in that club, and I mean, it's the feedback again. It's phenomenal, and they're not difficult things to do. It feels sometimes that it's like, well, that's what people should do anyway. Why won't
maybe
it be?
It's me. I don't know, but
So, and again, to have all the sections of the club and on and off the field, like you said, achieved by Unite. For me, the one bit of news that has stuck out in the last month or so is this club badge. And obviously being in marketing and branding and all of that, the badge, the emblem, the thing that people see the most probably.
Sure.
There's a lot of history in the current badge.
There's about 35 years history in the current badge.
But the new badge, I get the reason behind refreshing it.
Yeah.
When I saw the social media posts and the website and the comparisons to clubs and the badges that you made the comparison to, totally get why you're looking at it.
Yeah.
Again, mixed reviews, of course.
Of
there
course,
will be.
yeah.
Of course
Yeah,
there will
yeah,
be. A lot
yeah.
of people
Yeah.
associate with the badge, but I can see why, and I'm excited. How's that going? Where are we at with it?
Firstly, there's a term that says, progress depends on the unreasonable man, and to quote another analogy, the comfort zone is where dreams go to die, if you like. And so someone's got to bring that to the table.
Yeah.
Absolutely, the moment I mentioned it, of course you're going to get pushed back. Of course, things have to evolve.
Yeah.
It's worth pointing out that the logo on the front of this building is not the Yeovil Town Football Club logo. So I bet if I was changing that, there'd probably be a bit of kickback on that. The main thing with this, firstly, reasons why, if you like, the current badge is very hard to recreate across different mediums and stuff. It looks like it's drawn by a kid. If the person that did it's listening, I apologise. And things have to move on.
Yeah.
The most important thing about it, and it should be kicking in towards the end of June, is this is completely driven by consulting the fans and the community.
Yeah.
I'm literally the last person that would have influence on that logo. You can be quite surprised when you can have the fiercest critic, if you like, but you start to just put a few examples in front of them, maybe, and
Start to soften.
yeah. And we're using a specialist agency involved in this, that only focus on football club kind of branding.
Yeah.
It's literally a consultant channel, if you like. We consult with the fans, with the community, and they do it in a structured way, which kind of, it's not designed to appease fans. They've got the absolute right to defend the logo that they're used to seeing. But when you're saying people like, our badge steeped in history. The current badge, I think, existed as a line drawing in the late 70s, and in its current format, it was done in 1985. So, but then, with the demographic, a lot of them, it's the only badge they've ever seen. Yeah. I suppose the process is saying, let us just, show you, I could know people that say, I can't stand a certain sort of food, but they've never actually tried it. They're like, oh, no, it's lovely. And it's putting it out there, giving them the ideas. I totally believe it will end up with something that suits the majority of people.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the channel. And if you want to get extra content and support the channel, then check out the Patreon link in the description.